Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Okay, so thank you all for coming this evening and taking an active role in the future of our community. Before we begin reviewing the proposed budget, I would like to take a moment to reflect on what we have accomplished over the past year. As you will see displayed on the screen, this has been a year of meaningful progress in the town of Clinton. We have strengthened our entrance to our community with the rehabilitation of 14 West Main Street and the demolition of the houses on High Street. These highly visible gateway areas now better reflect the pride we have in our town and set a tone for the continued revitalization. We invested in recreation and quality of life, from a new pickleball court to a basketball half court by the beach to updated playground equipment. We've expanded opportunities for residents of all ages to gather, play, and enjoy our shoreline. New sidewalks have improved connectivity throughout the downtown area, making it easier and safer to move throughout our community. We have also invested in public safety and public works department with crucial equipment to ensure our employees have the tools they need to serve this community effectively and safely. Supporting these essential services strengthen our ability to respond, maintain infrastructure, and protect the well-being of our residents. Through partnership and collaboration, we opened Henry on Main with the Henry Carter Hall Library and the Senior Connection. What began as an idea as a pop-up library has become an incredible success story and a true example of what can happen when we work together. We were awarded $1 million in grants for capital improvement projects, allowing us to invest in infrastructure while leveraging outside funding. We have taken important steps to be better stewards of our shoreline by addressing erosion at the town beach, protecting one of our most treasured natural assets. Our schools continue to thrive. The Morgan Schools girls soccer team are the 2025 CIAC Class S state champions, a tremendous accomplishment that reflects the dedication of our students, educators, and families. Clinton is also seeing economic momentum. 134 new businesses opened last year, and the construction of Indian River Shops Phase 2 is underway. That kind of growth reflects confidence in our community and creates opportunity for our residents. This is also a reevaluation year. While changes in property values can raise questions, increasing values also reflect a strong and desirable community. As we review the proposed budget tonight, I ask you to keep these achievements in mind. Clinton is positioned to thrive because of fiscal responsibility embedded in our annual budget process. We are stewards of the taxpayer dollars. By maintaining a fiscally responsible budget, we can continue to invest in our community and reap the benefits of a prosperous town. I want to thank our department heads for their thoughtful and disciplined approach to this budget. They brought forward requests based on needs, not wants, and were open to exploring more efficient and cost-effective options. Over the past several months, we have carefully reviewed services, evaluated contracts, and made changes with vendors where we identified better value for the town. I also want to thank Bob Tate for his dedicated work on the budget being presented tonight. His diligence and attention to detail have been instrumental throughout this process. The budget before you reflects months of effort and careful review. It represents a solid request to fund town operations, maintain and enhance services, and do so while keeping the total budget increase in line with inflation. With that, Bob and I will begin by reviewing the town budget overview slides with everyone, and then the superintendent of schools will present the proposed Board of Ed budget. Thank you. Proposed budget process overview. The process includes public workshops and opportunities for community feedback before referendum. Developed collaboratively with department heads to reflect operational needs, strategic goals, and long-term planning. Long-term financial stability and capital planning are considered along annual operating needs. Based on the best and most current information available at this time, current revenue projections, state funding levels, and economic conditions remain in a state of flux, and assumptions may adjust as new information becomes available. Balances fiscal responsibility with maintaining essential services and community investment. Some budget pressures and competing demands. Unfunded state and federal mandates that require compliance without corresponding funding. Reevaluation that has shifted the tax burden with residential properties increasing significantly more than commercial properties. The budget sets priorities and must be a careful balance to address competing community needs. Municipalities carry contractual obligations that limit flexibility in certain areas of spending. Budget decisions affect and are affected by our residents, taxpayers, and local businesses. Must respond both to external pressures impacting Clinton and internal pressures related to local service expectations and priorities. The town is vulnerable to broader economic conditions, including inflation, labor markets, state funding, and cost volatility.
Okay, the total budget expenditures, including the Board of Ed line item, are proposed to increase by $2.2 million or 3.4%. The tax rate to support the proposed budget at this time is 22.75 mils, down from 31.14 mils. Decreases due to obviously the town revaluation. The current tax levy increased $3.9 million rounded, or 7.5%. The increase is due to the decrease in use of fund balance, which is 1.6 million. If you decrease the use of fund balance, it most likely is going to be local taxes that replace it. The decrease in other revenues is 101,000. And the increase in expenditures in the budget, as we said, is 2.2 million rounded. You could see the proposed budget compared to the adopted fiscal year 26. Divided this into town government operations, Board of Education operations, debt service split into town and education, and capital improvements split again into town and education. And you can see the bottom line, 68,662,383, an increase of 2.2 million, which is a 3.4% increase. So this is a expenditure summary, but it's a summary by object code, so we can identify or pinpoint the increases. As you can see on the right-hand side, salaries increased 382,000. Fringe benefits, almost 712,000. Operating expenses, 332,000. So we'll see the major reasons for those increases.
So expenditure summary, town government, major budget drivers. Salary increased $382,942 or 4.79%. Contractual and non-salary increases are listed there for you. Clerical union, 3.25, supervisors union, 3.25, police union, dispatch union, public works, and non-union are 3%. And there is a new proposed position of a school resource officer of 85,000.
So the 386,000 there that you see are the major drivers in that category. Obviously, there are some decreases and increases that add up to the 382,000. Another major budget driver is fringe benefits, increased close to 712,000, mainly due to active police officers shifting from the old pension plan to the state CMERS. Originally, a year ago, when we consulted with the actuaries and they used the information that they had then, the increase was supposed to be about 200,000. Their latest data, and included in that is using the most up-to-date mortality tables. So their assumptions changed. We had an additional pension cost of 528,000. Increased cost in medical benefits was 98,000, and the increased Social Security contribution due to salary increases is 32,000. That comes up to 658,000 on those major items in fringe benefits.
Expenditure summary, town government, major budget drivers. Operating expenses increased $332,041 or 7.51%. The major reasons is a human resources professional services, additional IT small capital of $43,000, body-worn cameras and in-car video systems operating lease, $78,000, and engineering professional services for DPW and planning, $25,000. There was some reallocation of some salaries from last year's budget, which we will go into more as we get into the budget workshops, and that will be a little bit more, there'll be more of a explanation for those. Capital improvement plans. Capital funding. This is for ongoing needs of critical investments. Funding options, bonding, budget, fund balance, local taxes, grants, and others. High priority items included in the capital plan for fiscal year 26-27. Police vehicle open-end annual lease. Continue funding for paving, public works equipment, police building generator, harbor dredging. This is the second part of the original. The first portion of it was in the last year's capital improvement plan, and the library building HVAC reserve.
So here's the year one of the proposed CIP. The funding source that affects the budget that we're working on is the general fund transfer out to Fund 60. Once the budget gets approved, these items here, if they're approved, is also approved. The other columns, the other funding columns, bonding, grants, other funds, they are approved individually during the fiscal year. Approving this CIP is just a plan. Those columns will have to be presented before the town council, and appropriations will have to be approved, and their sources of revenue. Department requests for the first year totaled rounding 7.2 million. Town manager recommended 6.3. And if you look at the proposed funding sources, you notice that the general fund transfer out to Fund 60 has been pretty dramatically reduced to close to $1 million because fund balance has basically been used up. So there's bonding amount totaling $2.7 million. That's within our debt service schedule capacity. That's up for discussion, and then we have grants and other funds. So debt service requires $5,197,000, an increase of $146,000 or 2.9%. That matches what's on our debt service forecast schedule. And as I say, debt service is carefully planned in order that debt service each year will not go up beyond inflation. Proposed revenues, if you look at the 26-27 estimates, obviously the total's got to equal the expenditure total amount as well. And we could recognize, if you look at the very last line item, which is other financing sources, which is use of fund balance, it decreased from 2.6 million down to 1 million, so that's a decrease of 1.6 million. How we're going to make up that revenue to balance the budget, it's basically the current tax levy.
Financing the budget, changes in the grand list. The grand list before the assessment appeals increased by 47.15%. This was mainly due to the town reevaluation that is required every 5 years by state statute. Residential real estate increased in value 61% more than other real estate categories. On the right there, you see the breakdown of percent for residential, commercial, industrial, public utility, vacant land, use assessment, and apartments. And the final grand list will be known in March after the Board of Assessment appeal process is completed.
Yeah. So this grand list is preliminary. You can't see the 47.15% because that's on the total grand list, which includes real estate, personal property, and motor vehicles. The graph on the right-hand side is just the real estate portion, the largest portion. And like we said, residential's 61% increase, commercial's 12, industrial's 33. So the burden's shifted from those items to residential.
Financing the budget, state aid. State aid is used to limit property tax increases. An example of these funds received are towards paving, for example. Local capital improvement program, we get $127,907. Grants for municipal projects, $191,000, and town aid road is $270. So local tax money out of our budget is $210,000. So when you see $800,000 in that amount on your budget, only $210,000 of it is taxpayer money. The rest of it is funded through state grants or state aid. It is the second largest source of revenue following property tax. State aid has remained the same as in prior year. If state aid does not go up with inflation, the difference is usually paid by local property taxes, local taxes. Financing the budget, other revenue, local generated revenue is projected to increase over prior year. Major increases are in the real estate conveyance tax account and building permit account. These accounts reflect local construction activity. Total estimated local revenue charges for service increased $125,500 or 10.9%.
So fund balance is always a topic. We talk about that every month. It has provided a degree of tax relief over the quite a few years. The amount that we can use is the excess over 20% of the total budget. As you can see on here, we've shown the prior use of fund balance going back to 2021. Then it was 1 million, went up to 2.6, back down to 1.8, went up to 3.3, then 4.0, and then back down to 2.6. Right now we're proposing 1 million. And again, when fund balance does decrease, it does create some financial pressures, because the only thing that can make up, unless you find other sources of revenues, would be local property tax.
So this budget proposes a preliminary mill rate of 22.75. The proposed decrease of 8.39 mills or 26.993% under fiscal year 25-26 rate. Decreases due to the reevaluation, reflecting an increase in total property values of 47%. This is helpful information to give everyone an idea. The value of 1 mil is $2,561,187. So to impact the mill rate, $100,000 in cuts reduces the mill rate by 0.03 mils. So for the average taxpayer, 0.03 mil reduction will result in a $7.50 relief to their annual bill, just to put it in perspective when you're thinking of the figures. And what makes a responsible budget? A responsible budget aligns resources with community priorities and strategic goals, balances fiscal responsibility with maintaining essential services, is transparent, realistic, and based on sound financial assumptions, plans not only for today but long-term sustainability, reflects thoughtful input from the public and the town council, demonstrates stewardship of taxpayer dollars while investing in Clinton's future. So that completes the town side presentation. I'm going to now invite the superintendent and the chair of the Board of Ed up to speak and share the Board of Ed proposed budget.
Good evening. So while Mary Ann is getting set up over there, I just want to thank you all for your consideration of the board's hard work. The world of public education is both incredibly dynamic and incredibly rewarding. And our budget really came out of the work of a great many conversations about the priorities of our students, the priorities of our family, and the priority of Clinton as a town that we want to see thriving in 10, 20, 30 years. So while this is the start of our conversation, and we look forward to partnering with you in talking about the big picture, please know that this is the result of many thoughtful, prudent discussions where we made some difficult decisions, and we are here tonight to request of you what our district needs to be able to implement our priorities with fidelity. Thank you.
And we want to leave the extra budget books that are just stapled with Mary before we leave tonight, okay? All right, ready?
We're ready.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to present tonight. On behalf of the Board of Education, this budget was approved a couple weeks ago and was the result of a long process, as is the town budget and where we're going to land, and we know there's more to come. I am proud to present on behalf of the Board of Education. These are our members. Erica Gelvin is our chairperson, Catherine Staunton. Tonight we have Tom Danahy with us, we have Alan Samet with us, and our other members are listed there. And I can say that this budget that I'm presenting tonight was a unanimously supported budget on the part of the Board of Ed and the result of a lot of difficult kind of discussions and decisions amongst the members. So I usually kind of end with the budget book, but I'm going to start with it tonight. So what you have tonight is a copy of the presentation, so that's what I'll reference. But I do want to start just by laying out the budget book because there's a particular page I think will go hand in hand with the presentation. So what you have is our budget book. If you open underneath the cover, there's a table of contents that lays out these page numbers that are on this slide. But many of the questions and the things that we'll talk about and the things that we struggled with or talked about as a Board of Education are contained within this budget book. So a lot of the answers to things that you might be wondering are here. We start with just some introductory information, our mission, the timeline that we used. I think the next section on enrollment and staffing, that's always a question of where we are and where we've been. So these next set of pages show our projected enrollment, which we have done every year based on live births and trends that have occurred. So that's an updated one, followed by class size information. And then we have tables of both our certified staff, so our teachers, any staff member who's required to have certification in the state of Connecticut is listed in the first set of tables, and that shows you a 5-year trend of the actual FTEs, or staff members that exist. And so you can pretty much find any school, any subject, and see the trending over the last 5 years. We have this back much further. There were more changes even before these past 5 years, but you can kind of see what's happened. And then shortly after that, starting on page 12, is the non-certified staffing. So these would be custodians, food service, office support, para-educators, technology staff, school health staff. They're contained in that section. And again, the same trending. So if you're curious or looking, that's a section that I often refer people to because we get a lot of questions about our staffing levels. Behind that is the request by object, and this is where my presentation will settle tonight, and then when I'm back next week, we can get into more detail, but I kind of do the high level. So behind that request by object on page 15, we provide an explanation of what these objects mean, and then we provide information about why it might be increasing or decreasing. So this is backup information. I will be talking about and highlighting the major changes in objects tonight, but we've also outlined it in writing so that when you're looking at this or want to go back, or anybody in the public wants to take a look at why things are happening, there's a description there. And page 19 is the one that I'm going to ask you to leave open when I start my presentation, because that is the layout of the object categories, and I think as I'm talking, I talk about individual ones, but it might be helpful to reference this. Before we do that, and I jump into the presentation, the next section is the request by cost center. This is the actual line item detail. So our cost centers are each of our schools, our central office, staff and support that occurs there, maintenance, District-wide is all of the categories, like utilities are in there, our benefits are in there, anything that supports the entire district. Then we have athletics, and Pearson's still there because we have a trending that still includes them. So a couple more years, it'll remain on this. So behind that is some description and then the specific line items. So you can go in and look at any school and where the line item increases are in that whole section. And then behind that are the typical questions that we get, more district information. So one of the things that I will talk about tonight, we've talked about it in the past 2 years, are projected tuitions for students who receive their education out of Clinton, and last year that was a huge driver. There is an increase this year, but it's flattened a little, and I'll talk about that in my presentation. But we lay out the specifics on that page, on page 49. Behind that, we give you information about grants and revenues that come to the town and or directly to the board, and then how those grants and revenues are used. We also have a page of our per pupil expenditure information that tracks the last 10 years and does some local comparisons to that. We have a short page on our capital expenditure budget, a page on the debt service that you heard about tonight, and that's the end of the budget book. So there's a lot of really good information that answers a lot of questions. I'll reference it a little bit tonight, but probably more next week. So I wanted to just give you the overview of the budget book. This is all available online on our website, electronically and digitally, so that you can access it or anyone in the public can access the information. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to jump into our presentation and highlight the overviews. As we always start, there's one of our proud graduates last June. And I think the mission statement of the Clinton Public Schools is really powerful, and it is something that has driven our work, our strategic planning, and what we're trying to provide to the students in this community. So we are looking to empower our learners to embrace and influence the future with courage and compassion. And that drives into all the work we do every day with our staff and our students. This budget and the work of the board and all of the administrators and our teachers is driven by a strategic plan. That also is available on our website. This is a highlight of our 4 main strategic objectives. The top 2, and those top 2 circles, really have to do with that classroom work, the learning, the development of students. And the second one is really looking at what the quality and application of the learning is for students. So making sure we provide individualized and personalized learning experiences so that students can be reflective, they can apply their learning and be ready to face the future that they're going to see. The bottom 2 are really about building our school community and climate. And then the bottom right-hand corner is, I think, our ultimate responsibility, which is to make sure that our buildings and our facilities and the schools are safe, that we are really careful with the entrusted money that's given to the district and fiscally responsible, that we make sure that our systems, our planning, and our management of resources are done and carefully watched over. And we take that very seriously. It's one of our main objectives, and we have very specific things in our strategic plan about that. And I think tonight's budget and the conversation we're going to continue to have, I hope you'll see that the board, our administrators, and myself take that very seriously. So I'll give a quick overview of the budget development process. As you heard from our town manager, the budget process for us starts, we've been doing this for quite a few months. It starts in the buildings, but we do start with really identifying focus areas related to our strategic plan. So these 4 bullets really drove a lot of our conversation with administrators as well as at the board level of really making sure that our investment is with our staff and our student experiences. That's where we want the money to flow. That's what has the greatest impact. That's what we're about. One of the things we're working on with our staff is a focus on high quality instruction. We want the best teachers, instructors, and educators on the shoreline. We believe we're building towards that and have that. But our professional development, our training is really focused on developing that staff capacity and doing that internally in a collaborative way, all focused around a framework of high quality instruction. The next one is really, and this was a struggle last year and this year, is to control those operational costs to ensure that the resources are getting to students and the student experience. So as our town manager talked about, looking at contracts, some of which we were partnered in, looking at anything that is no longer effective or we're not utilizing, eliminating those things so we can prioritize our students, staff, and classrooms. And then lastly, I think this is one of the most amazing things about Clinton, is our board throughout the years, our community supports that this is more than just, your report card, your transcript, but it's about who we are as a community and those experiences that kids have. So we want that holistic pre-K through 12 program and make sure our students can engage in a variety of ways. And I'm going to share a couple of those after we talk about inflationary pressures. So as the town is facing, it's not a surprise, I don't think, that our health insurance costs are rising. It's true across the nation. We are part of the Connecticut State Partnership Plan. The town is as well. This is something we moved to about 4 or 5 years ago. And honestly, over that time, we have saved close to $2 million by making that move back then. But everybody is seeing these big increases in the insurance benefits. So that is something that's driving us. The contracted salary increase is another one. Many of you are aware we have collective bargaining, similar to the town, but there are other constraints for us. Our board has negotiated effectively and fairly, but has also kind of held the line as necessary. And I think we're seeing some of the salary increases being the effect of the most recent inflationary years, and the most recent contract settlements and averages were higher than what we've seen recently. So we're impacted by that this year. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more and can do so next week too. We also are seeing the need to develop specialized programs in districts so our students can access their education and curriculum here in Clinton and not necessarily have to go to an out-of-district program to meet their specific needs. And so we have developed some in-district specialized programs. It's required an investment. We've done that primarily with using the staff we have and shifting things around to focus to where the needs are. But that has been something that is driving us needing to make sure that we provide the proper support and services. I mentioned the out-of-district tuition increases and utility costs, in particular electricity last year, this year, but we did just lock in a new kilowatt-hour rate that has definitely allowed us, even though it's increasing, to keep that increase at a minimum. And we're also aligned with the town at the next time that the contract is up to really leverage it. So we are trying to work together to find ways to keep these costs down. So with all that said, and before we get to the numbers, one of the things I talked about, the high quality instruction, I talked about the personalized learning experiences. You heard the town manager mention our girls soccer team winning a state championship. We've had lots of success in our athletics recently, but it's the whole experience for our students and what that journey is to empower them to become learners that can embrace and influence their future with courage and compassion. We really live that. And our administrators and my assistant superintendent, and many of you are aware of this, have done a lot of work to really look at how our programs are launching our students and giving them authentic experiences while they're with us. So while dollars are limited, we've leveraged grants, we've leveraged internal staff, community contributions with businesses in town and in the state, and we've been able to refine and develop a series of programs, and I listed some of these. You probably heard about our advanced manufacturing. Some of you have been a part of that, but we have also been working in culinary. We're developing a cybersecurity pathway where students will get computer science and cyber experience. Allied health and our science programs. That picture at the bottom was in the Clinton Events magazine. And if you go and read it, you'll hear about our staff members who are being recognized at the state and even national level for their work in the sciences, and our kids are getting authentic research experiences. Our math and data science pathways, visual and performing arts. If you've been to a musical or you see our kids performing, those numbers are increasing. So our students are engaged, and I put leadership at the end. That's our next Clinton Events article, but our kids are getting experiences to build confidence and skill sets that really make them leaders, that they're able to go out beyond our school, not just with their transcript in hand, but real authentic experience. So while we get into numbers and we know where we're headed, I think it's really important to see the work that's happening, and we're doing that within our staffing patterns, and we're really leveraging grants, and we'll have some more information for you if you want it about how we've supported some of this expansion, not asking for it in operating budget. But we're really proud of these programs and what's happening for our students, and we're seeing them getting jobs and going into post-secondary colleges and schools that are allowing them to have a step ahead of others. So the thing I want to highlight here, it's here to kind of remind of the work that our Board of Ed work really occurs in January and February. So as soon as the new year starts, that's when our budget presentations from each of the cost centers, the workshops happen. I present my budget at the end of January, then there are a couple workshops, and then the board does finalize that, approve a budget so we can bring it down here, and now we know this next part of the process is going to happen. Just to highlight, during that time frame, the board did bring it down almost a full % from where we started in making some hard decisions, looking at every line item to get to where we are today. So approximately $365,000 was already cut from the budget during that January process. So at this point, our operating request is just over $41 million. It's a $2.1 million increase, and we're at a 5.44%. And that is the number that you saw embedded in the presentation. Context to that percentage, basically that total increase is made up of salaries, benefits, and tuition. Everything else on this object page, which is why I asked you to turn to page 19, if you look at the top three, it's our certified salaries, our non-certified salaries, and our employee benefits. $2,064,496 is salaries and benefits. It's 76% of our total budget, and that's where our money is. It's in people and the benefits that support those people. The tuition line is a slight increase of just over $200,000. I think I have it on another slide, and that's making up a small portion of the increase, but the majority of this increase, 5% of it is salaries and benefits. And everything else is contained, is actually a negative 7%. Couldn't quite show that on the graph, but I feel like the graph kind of demonstrates where the increase in our budget is coming from. So these slides will just highlight some object increases. It's referencing the information on page 19. And I want to address the certified salary and non-certified salary objects to clarify a little bit. So in our certified salaries, we talked about that collective bargaining. This is going into the second year of a 3-year contract. This second year in the settlement was the highest of the 3 years. The settlement came in at the state average, but year 2 was higher because our salary schedules are your experience level coupled with your educational degree, and that experience level, they're called steps. And in this particular year, we have the largest number of staff members who are reaching the final step, and that step is a larger one. So it increases the percentage increase in this year, and next year it goes down by another % because our people have reached the top. It takes 13 years to reach the top. Starting salaries are anywhere between $51,000 and $56,000, and then it takes them 13 years. And that final step is, this year is a higher increase, and I have more people doing that. The good news is our teachers are coming and staying, and that longevity piece, it's kind of built in at the top. And that is something that we're fixing to help smooth it out in the next contract, and it's already set up to do. But this is the year where it's a little bit higher than the other years, and this is the lag of that inflationary couple of years. We did our settlement of our contract, it's a look back, and that drives our salaries upward. So we're seeing a larger increase in the certified staff than we have. And then the non-cert is confusing, and I'm sorry that it's confusing, because if you look at page 19, you'll see that the non-certified salaries are going up 14.63%, or $595,000. But you'll see just below that, the professional and technical services is going down by 325. You guys see that on the object page, right? So this is actually a movement of salary money into the proper place for state reporting. So we have to move it. The salaries that are being moved, you can see on the slide, are related to our nursing services. We used to have a contract with VNA. 2 years ago, I believe it was, VNA said, we're done, we're not doing school-based services anymore, and so we had to bring the nurses under the Board of Ed. In order to report it properly, we need to move that money because now it's salaries, not a contracted service. So we're just moving it from one line to the other, one object to the other. And so it looks like this big increase, but you can see the decrease right below it on the object page, and I kind of explained it there. We also used to contract for occupational therapy services. Again, that person left. We were able to hire our own occupational therapist, and in both cases, we saved money because any administrative costs that we were paying in the contract are now human resources with us, and we administer all that. So there was savings in both cases, but we're just moving the money from one object to the other, from one line to the other. But it does make it look a little confusing why it's so high. Without that, though, we still would have a 5.85% increase in our non-certified salaries, and I listed a little bit why. We've seen a push and an increase in the cost of subs, the number of subs needed, and if you look at our line item, you'll see that we've been way under budgeted in that line over the last many years. So this is a slight correction. It doesn't get us to meet, but it is a course correction. We have not increased that amount in many, many years. The second is there are certain student needs within the school that require assistance, a paraeducator, a behavioral assistant in the classroom, and those are part of students' individualized education plans. And when that happens, a student moves in or a change happens and we need to provide that support, sometimes we have to add a paraeducator or a support person. And so the other bit of the increase is really related to that. And then lastly, it says a decrease in grant funding. So we have seen a little bit of decrease in our title grants and in our special ed grants. And as a result, a little bit of that, a portion of their salary is moved to operations. So really it is our salary lines. I'm prepared to talk a lot more about that next week when I meet with you, but I wanted to give you a quick overview and a little bit of information so you can take a look at it before I come back and meet with you. The next is employee benefits. We've talked about this. The Connecticut State Partnership Plan has set a range. Right now, we are, with our current census, we are budgeted at the 12% range. So even if it comes down, I'm not sure we're going to be able to move that. In some years, by April, we've been able to say we can reduce it. So we'll be recalculating along the way to see what the state does. But at this point, I don't know that we're going to realize additional savings in the benefits line. Yeah. I'm hoping it doesn't go above 15%. I think it won't, and if they do, we're going to have to just manage it and find it elsewhere in the budget because it would be a change afterwards. This is the other one that makes up, I told you, 0.55% of the increase this year, or last year it was a big, huge driver. You can see the increase in numbers. So last year we projected 25, in 24-25, and then we were projecting 33. We have had a lot of movement in and out, so the 30 students, some of them are new, and we didn't know about them last year. Some of them are different students, and some of the kids that we projected for left. So there's a lot of variability in this line. Right now, at this point, we try to project to everything we know, and we are projecting 30 students there, and those 30 students, it's overall for their program needs is a $217,000 increase. So all others, I mentioned the public utilities. Our transportation is increasing by 4%, but we've been able to offset that by reduced fuel costs. We did do some changes to routes. We had reduced buses in the past, so we're able to cut our fuel costs, and the price of gas is better. So we're able to reduce that from what would be about a $50,000 increase. Athletics transportation, it is a bigger increase. It's actually a 2-year increase. the budget trending that we did and the actuals, where we landed last year, we didn't budget properly this year. So if you look, you're gonna see we're under budgeted by about 10,000, and we're looking at the increase. And again, we've looked at that line, so I can give you more detail if you have questions about it. But that's right sizing to what our actual accounts are. And then supplies other, there's an increase in the software licenses, a little bit of graduation expenses, athletic equipment, and then Elliott uniform replacement. We do have some object decreases. So that big one is the professional technical services. That's primarily due to moving the money to the salaries line, because that's what it actually represents for us. But with that said, there is, in that account, there's a little bit of an increase for all of the other professional services based on contracts or things that are in there. But in general, that big decrease is due to the move. We are looking at our trending. Even with a cold winter, we're comfortable that we can reduce that fuel for heat a little bit, reduce need for textbooks, and we've really tried to fine tune our dues and fees and trim where we can. So again, as a high-end summary, that's our increase. Those 4 bullets are really what kind of drove our talking and thinking around the budget. And I think there's lots of places where we can represent each one of those things within the specific line items and the overview of this budget. While tonight is primarily we're presenting you with the operating, we did present a capital budget request of $781,148, which was an increase of just under $200,000. That was presented to the town, approved by the board in December, and sent downtown. It's already, been adjusted. I've talked to Michelle and Bob about it, so that number is not necessarily where we're at right now, but it is what the board approved. And I pointed out because our request was larger in some of the planning, we were asked to trim, so we met the number that was there, also knowing that that could adjust. So more to come on that, but in general, these are the items for capital budget. And I know next week when I'm here, I have more specifics and we can talk about any of those pieces if you have any questions about them, but this is kind of the overview. And you can see even in the district, there's certain things that are happening at schools. They're just counted in that district section versus a specific school one. So we do have next Thursday, February 26th. Sometimes it's a couple weeks before I come back, so I will be back next week. And I'm glad I had the chance to kind of share this with you. You have it for a week. I'll be there as you're beginning your journey, and you'll hopefully can get grounded and get questions answered about our Board of Ed budget and capital as necessary. And then I took the March 12th date because that's the tentative date that all of you would be kind of finalizing things. So we have time for me to provide any backup, any additional information. I'll be here next week to answer questions about anything that you have. And I wanted to put that there. And I'm ending with that idea of questions, but anything you have can go to Mary or Michelle, or you can send directly to myself and or Erica, and we'll try to make sure we have the backup data and can give some context next week. But I'm also ready to do that even if you don't send me questions. We're ready to kind of explain where we are and give you some answers. So I appreciate your time. I know I put a lot at you, but hopefully the resources we gave you were helpful, and we're ready to kind of begin the journey with all of you. Thank you. Sure.
I might have missed something. The capital budget request and the amount. Did you say that there was some change?
Yes.
Yeah, so originally in last year, we submitted our 5-year plan and then received back kind of a generalized plan that I think was put together and shared with you about how to help even out expenses. And so in that generalized plan, what came back to us was, I think our original request was like 981,148. And what came back to us was 781,148. So as a building and grounds subcommittee with the board members, our director of facilities technology, we kind of massaged that, cut some things, and prioritized to get to the 781. I believe that there is an additional cut or changes to things, and so that's something that I suppose we can talk about next week when I'm here. I don't have the detail of where they landed because we've all been working, but I do know there's some potential reduction there that got to the number you saw tonight. So we haven't made any changes with the board or done anything there. Yeah, that would go back to
Right.
the board, whatever number we land on, and
Their
see what
number
you guys
doesn't
have.
reflect, the numbers that I presented reflect my request or my proposed budget, which is a deduction in their capital request. So theirs is higher than what you see in your books from me.
And usually
So
we
it's gonna
wait
be
on
lower?
that.
It's gonna be
Is that what
lower.
you're saying,
It's-
than that 780?
They're lower.
581,
Yes.
I think.
I
right?
took 200,000 off.
Yeah.
You took another 200,000?
200,000.
So it'd be 581?
I
Yes.
believe that's,
Let's
yeah,
just-
I
yeah.
believe that's
Yes.
the number.
Yes, and then 100, it was 100,000 last year. They came in at the same as they did last year, and then I reduced another 2.
So we would go back, if that's where we land, to our committee and take a look at things. And that actually then, I think it's a slight reduction from where we were last year. It's about flat for capital then. And that was something that Michelle talked to me about, that she gave me a heads up that that was an initial piece that she was recommending.
It's a tight year. Okay, all right.
Is there any way that I could ask a question or not?
No, not officially, not in this setting right now, no. So we're all done here, so it is 6:50. We will come back together at 7 o'clock for our regular town council meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
everyone.
Marion.